For years, we all believed Meghan Markle and Prince Harry were living their ultimate dream far away from the royal drama, basking in the California sunshine, smiling in their mansion with little Archie and Lilibet. It was the image of freedom, the image of love, the image of happily ever after. But now, someone who lived inside that dream has finally broken her silence, and her words have sent shockwaves through everyone who once admired that perfect picture. Because behind those million-dollar smiles, there was silence. Not peace, not joy, but a haunting silence that even the walls couldn't hide. The woman speaking now isn't a tabloid reporter. She isn't a paparazzi outsider. She's the one who saw it all, the nanny, the maid, the woman who walked those quiet halls every single day. She says the fairy tale that the world believed was nothing but a beautifully staged illusion. And when she finally spoke, the truth she revealed was darker, colder, and more chilling than anyone could have imagined. Inside that mansion, she says, everything looked perfect. The floors gleamed like glass. The flowers were always fresh. Every towel was folded with precision. It was a palace of perfection, but it didn't feel alive. Because what she didn't hear was laughter. What she didn't see were toys being played with. And what she never once felt was the warmth of a real home. Every corner felt staged, not for a family, but for a photo. The living room looked like a showroom. The nursery looked untouched. And every time Meghan passed by, the air changed. The maid said it was like watching a movie set, spotless, beautiful, but lifeless. Friends would ask her, what's it like working for the Duke and Duchess? She couldn't tell them the truth that the house felt more like a museum than a home. And when the world watched that famous Netflix documentary showing Meghan and Harry laughing, cuddling with their kids, baking in the kitchen, the maid sat in disbelief. Because she recognized the smiles, but not the rooms, not the background, not even the furniture. It was like watching strangers pretending to live in a home that wasn't theirs, she said. By the time she left, she knew she wasn't just walking away from a job. She was walking away from a secret one that had been buried beneath layers of image, control, and silence. When Meghan Markle started searching for a nanny, the world assumed it would be the opportunity of a lifetime, a royal job, a dream role, surrounded by luxury and fame. But what if I told you it was nothing like that? According to those who were there, Meghan's hiring process wasn't about finding someone loving or skilled with children. It was about finding someone who fit a story. Her rules were strict, almost unnerving, and the message was crystal clear. This wasn't a job about caring for kids. This was a job about protecting an image. The first rule: the nanny had to be plain. No makeup, no polished hair, no fashionable clothes. She had to fade into the background. On paper, it sounded professional, but those who knew Meghan said it was about something else entirely. Control. Meghan didn't want anyone in her home who could draw attention away from her. The spotlight was hers, and hers alone. The second rule: the nanny had to be available 24 hours a day. No weekends, no rest, no personal life. She couldn't have a husband. She couldn't have kids. She couldn't even have a partner waiting at home. She belonged to the Sussexes' body, time, and soul. The house became her workplace and her prison. The staff whispered strange, unspoken rules. If Meghan was in the room, keep your eyes down. If Harry walked in, step out quietly unless you were told to stay. Every movement, every word had to be measured. It was like walking on glass. And the silence, it wasn't peaceful anymore. It was chilling. Some candidates dropped out halfway through the process. Others left shaking, saying they felt watched, because apparently they were. The woman who eventually got the job thought she was finished with her trial shift. She'd smiled, worked hard, followed every rule. But what she didn't know was that her real test had only just begun. Behind those grand Montecito walls, eyes were watching. Hidden cameras were everywhere. Every word she spoke, every gesture she made, every nervous glance, all of it was recorded. Insiders claimed Meghan installed these for security, but those who worked there say they were used for something else: surveillance, a way to judge who could be trusted and who couldn't. While the nanny thought she was in a trial, Meghan and Harry were actually observing her from another room, watching how she cleaned, how she handled stress, how she reacted when orders changed. One wrong move and you were done. Smile too much? You're fake. Speak too freely? You're unreliable. It was a silent audition for a role no one could truly win. When the nanny was finally invited to meet Meghan and Harry, she expected an interview about childcare. But instead, Meghan smiled politely. Harry nodded quietly. And that was it. No questions about kids. No conversation about duties. Because they already knew everything. Her trial wasn't an interview, it was surveillance. Even after being hired, she said she could feel the eyes on her. It was like living inside a fishbowl, where every move was being analyzed. Certain rooms were always locked. Certain doors were never opened. Sometimes Meghan disappeared for hours, and no one dared to ask where. Even Harry seemed distant, wandering through the halls, lost in silence. The nanny realized this wasn't a family home. It was a performance, a perfectly crafted illusion. When Meghan and Harry were expecting their first child, Harry had a plan. He wanted to do things the royal way, the way he'd been raised. A Norland nanny, the gold standard of British childcare. Professional, discreet, loyal. But Meghan, she refused. She said those uniforms made homes feel cold. that the brown dresses and strict manners represented servitude, not love. She wanted freedom. She wanted California style. No uniforms, no rules, no traditions. At first, it seemed harmless. But that decision, that one rejection of the Norland way, changed everything, because it wasn't just about a nanny, it was about power. From that day forward, Meghan ruled the household on her own terms. No royal routines, no staff hierarchy, no schedules. She was the queen of her own kingdom. And Harry, he started to fade. Staff said his voice grew quieter, his presence smaller, while Meghan's control only grew stronger. Their disagreements, once whispered, became tension-filled silence. The mansion became divided not by walls but by ego and image. The nanny could feel it, the distance, the dominance, the quiet collapse of what the world thought was a perfect couple. But the most shocking part hadn't even begun. Because soon, the maid, the one who stayed silent the longest, revealed something no one dared to imagine. She said she never once saw Meghan pregnant. The maid says she worked in that Montecito mansion for months, arriving before dawn and leaving long after the sun disappeared behind those California hills. She cleaned every room, every corner. She knew the house like the back of her hand. But one thing never changed during all that time. She never once saw Meghan pregnant, not a growing belly, not a morning sickness moment. Not a single trace that a baby was on the way. At first, she brushed it off. Maybe Meghan wanted privacy, who wouldn't, after the media chaos she'd faced? But as weeks turned into months, doubt began to grow. The timeline didn't make sense. She'd see Meghan walking through the halls every morning, perfect posture, glowing skin, but no sign of change. No maternity clothes, no slow steps, no baby bump. When Archie was born, there was no hospital rush, no medical equipment, not even a single cry echoing through that massive home. The staff were simply told, keep quiet. No one questioned it. Because inside those gates, questions were dangerous. The same thing happened again with Lilibet. Meghan's glowing photos appeared everywhere. Her soft smile, hands resting on her stomach, the sunlight streaming perfectly through the trees. The pictures looked heavenly. It was like the house was built for children who didn't live there. At first, she thought maybe the kids were staying with relatives, or maybe security reasons kept them away. But after months of working there and hearing every whisper, every silence, it became impossible to ignore. The kitchen staff never received special meal orders for kids. No baby bottles were washed. No toddler snacks were prepared. And when that Netflix documentary aired showing the perfect family life, the maid said something that sent chills down people's spines. That wasn't our house. The garden looked staged. The furniture, the layout, even the sunlight all wrong. It felt like watching a fantasy, she said. A fantasy built to convince the world that happiness lived there. But inside, what truly lived there was emptiness. The chicken coop illusion, remember the famous Oprah interview? That calm, peaceful garden, the white fences, the adorable chickens running around, a picture of domestic bliss. Meghan had told Oprah, with that soft voice, that Archie loved feeding those chickens. The world melted. It was the image of a simple, grounded mother living a wholesome life. But the maid, she remembers that day differently. She says, the moment Oprah's team arrived, the house transformed. Meghan moved like a director on set, giving orders, adjusting flowers, rearranging props. The coop was freshly painted. The chickens were cleaned. Even the soil was replaced to make it look earthier. Everything had to be perfect, natural, but perfect. And when the camera started rolling, Meghan smiled like she was born for the lens. Her tone was soft, her words emotional. But the maid, standing just out of frame, noticed one haunting thing. There were no children. Archie and Lilibet were never there. Not playing, not laughing, not feeding chickens. That garden scene, the one that made millions believe in a fairy tale, was just another set piece in the grand performance. After the filming, the coop went quiet again. The chickens pecked around lazily, the props were cleared, and the garden fell back into silence. The maid said it best. It wasn't a home, it was a show. Every corner of that mansion was carefully curated. Every photo, every interview, every frame designed to project one story, the perfect family who escaped royal control. But behind those walls, control was the only thing that truly existed. Phones were banned, bags were searched, no staff could take photos, visitors left their devices at the gate. The home wasn't filled with freedom. It was filled with fear. Even Harry, she said, looked like a man caught between two realities, the one the camera showed and the one he quietly lived in. And Meghan, she ruled it all. After the Oprah interview aired, the staff gathered secretly to watch it. They sat in silence as the world cheered for Meghan's honesty and vulnerability. But inside that room, the staff exchanged uneasy glances, because the laughter they saw on screen didn't match the silence they had lived through every single day. The illusion that fooled the world. The maid's story spread quietly, at first whispers among ex-staff, murmurs in online forums. Some dismissed her as bitter, others said she was exaggerating. But she never changed her words. I worked there, she said. I saw what I saw. And what I didn't see speaks louder than anything. She wasn't angry. She wasn't even emotional when she said it. She just sounded tired of pretending that perfection was real. According to her, Meghan's world wasn't built on love or freedom. It was built on control, on image, on illusion. The laughter you heard in those interviews, scripted. The family photos, staged. The fairy tale, manufactured. The mansion that once looked like heaven was filled with silence. And when she finally walked away, she said something that haunts everyone who's heard it since. They showed the world a story, but I lived in the truth. And that truth was darker than anyone dared to believe. Because behind those golden gates of Montecito lay a mystery no one has truly solved. Not the staff, not the public, maybe not even Harry himself. Where were Archie and Lilibet? Why was everything so quiet? And why did it all feel like a dream too carefully constructed to be real? The world may never know the full truth. But one thing's certain, the illusion of perfection can hide the deepest cracks. And sometimes, even the most beautiful story is the biggest lie ever told.